You know that feeling where you get that spark of inspiration for some music or for some lyrics? So you write it down, you tweak it a little bit, and you look at it and you just know you're creating something really, truly special. But then you hit a complete creative roadblock. Everything you try to write and add to it feels subpar to that first thing you created, and what makes it even worse is that the more you write, the worse everything seems to get. I have countless notebooks and voice recordings of songs and pieces of music I started, but hit that exact same block and was just never able to really finish. Now, to be clear, a lot of these songs probably weren't as good as they felt. But there are some that I've held on to that I feel like I just haven't figured out how to put the right words to it. Actually, my song Darling the World Wants You Back took me 3 years to finish the words to because it was a heavy topic and I kept reconsidering how I wanted to say every bit. But I knew there was something special and I just wanted to find the right words to it. But today I want to hopefully save you 3 years of effort and give you some tools that I use to finish songs like this. So grab a pen, grab a blank piece of paper, and some song that you're working on, and let's jump into it. Almost every single song that I've ever written has started out with a single lyric or a single bit of music and grown from there. Oftentimes when I write that bit of music, I don't know entirely what I'm writing about. I might have an idea like I'm trying to express, oh, this breakup hurt, or oh, I'm so in love, or something like that, but I don't necessarily know what the song is. So the first tool up is to find the story of your song. Great stories have a beginning and they have an end, and most songs do as well. So the first step to this is just asking, where am I starting and where am I ending up? Now, if you're telling a story that's very real and has events in it, that might be super obvious, but some songs may not be so obvious. A great example of a song that wouldn't have to have a story, but actually does, is Shape of You by Ed Sheeran. And it's a really subtle one, but the song in its first verse talks about being in the bar with his friends and meeting this girl. Then he gets with the girl. Then the second verse talks about that next step in their relationship. It expands on from there, and so on. There are songs that tell whole life stories from when someone's born to when they died. That could be your story. Your story may be expressing some metaphor that gets across a deeper idea, or it could even be as simple as lamenting. The point is, just like you don't want to listen to the same measure of music repeated for 3 or 4 minutes, you probably don't want to hear the same lyrics repeated for 3 or 4 minutes. You want things to change and develop, even if you're not consciously thinking about it. In the book Writing Better Lyrics, Pat Pattison actually talks about how each section of the song, each verse or a bridge, should add new context to a chorus. So if I'm hearing a chorus or maybe some other repeated part over and over, every time I hear it, I should have new context that informs that chorus differently. If it doesn't mean anything new, did you earn the repeat? If you're looking for somewhere to start, a really great pattern to follow is to introduce in the first verse what your song's about. Do a chorus. Second verse adds new information that will inform the second chorus and will expand on the ideas of the first verse probably. Another chorus. Then in your bridge, I like to look for something that will either twist things or develop them in a more dramatic way, probably than that second verse did. This comes at a good moment of the song too, because bridges tend to be the most musically different section compared to verses and choruses throughout a song. Another storytelling trick that a lot of songs use is that after a bridge or even a verse that reveals something to the story that's dramatic, you'll often get a lyrically different next chorus. And that lets you tell even more story if necessary. These are just some ideas that will get you started, and clearly there's no rules and absolutes here, but I do think if you know what your story is, you'll have an easier time telling it. Now, one of the ways I personally get myself in a rut is when I have a great idea, I want to record it so I don't forget it. So I record that section or sing that part, and then I play it back, or I put it inside my DAW and start working with it and trying to make something out of it. Now, while that can be super valuable from time to time, my second tool is actually to get tactile with it. And grab your instrument, even if you don't play a lot or you don't feel like you're great, and just play with it and sing along. Let yourself sing whatever words come to mind, even if they're just complete nonsense. Literally, sometimes I'll be sitting here, I'll be singing like,
you hear what I'm saying? 'Cause I'm locked in all this shame, like a tall glass of lemonade. And that's just the way that I was made.
Ideally, you want to treat this as a 100% free, loose brainstorming session. Wherever the music takes you, you go. If you come up with some crazy lyrics or some part of the story that Even if you know in the back of your mind you're not going to use, let it go, because you might just find that one killer word or killer expression that you can pull out of the insanity and bring back into your song. And if you already have a lyric written that you love, but you're just having trouble finding that next phrase that rhymes with it and completes it, that isn't super boring, one thing you can do is pull up a rhyming dictionary and just go through every word. Doesn't matter if the word doesn't make any sense, literally sing your phrase, do blah, 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 rhyme with it. Now, if you're doing this, or if you're using that thesaurus to help find new creative words, I would strongly recommend to be very hesitant about trying to find some quirky, hyper unique word to say what you want to say, because oftentimes it's the most simple expression and the most simple thing that can have the biggest impact in a lyric. So now that you've found your story and you're getting tactile with it, you're playing your song, you probably have some parts finished, but you know it's not enough that really cumulatively adds up to a complete song. Say, for example, you've written a verse, you've written a chorus, you love them, but now you don't know what else you need to say in a second verse. Do you need a second verse? Should you write a bridge? Should you write a third verse? Or maybe it's one of those really rare songs where the first verse is so impactful that you can just sing it again and it still really works. The point being, there are a lot of possibilities on where you want to take your song, and the story you're writing will probably have a big impact on what type of song this is. There are infinite possibilities based on what type of story you want to tell. You might end up with something like a ballad, or you might have something that's more like an anthem, and all of these are legit, but it can be really helpful to find a structure and work inside that just to breed some ideas. And I like to call this process coloring in the lines. So what I do, and I really do this all the time, is I take a song structure that already exists and I just try to write the sections that make sense. I may not use all of them in the final cut, but it forces me to write and think about the story in some context. So going back to our example, if I have a verse and a chorus finished, well, one of the most common song structures is verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. So what could I do if I needed to write a second verse? Where can this story go? I'll write the second verse and sing the chorus again. Does that make sense? Was the chorus worth hearing again after that second verse? Now, what can I say in the bridge? How can I add a twist to this story if I'm trying to fit in this structure? Like, I have these 3 sections of storytelling and then 3 choruses. So every time I want to hear that, what new information am I going to give in that section? But now let's say I have that verse and that chorus and I want to apply it to the structure of verse, 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 verse. There are quite a few ballads out there that are a collection of verses that each tell a part of a story. So what I might do in this case is write a first verse and then try to transfer my chorus into either some section that I may reuse or change the lyrics of at the end of every verse, or create some kind of hook out of it that goes in between my verses. So then I get this verse instrumental. The thought process you'll have writing 4 verses is very different than what you would get writing 2 or 3 verses going verse, chorus. One really incredible example of just how different a 4-verse storytelling structure can be is in Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash. In the first verse of this song, he tells you that he's in prison, he's looking out and seeing this train going by on the outside. Then, in the second verse, he jumps back in time and he lets you know how he got here in prison, right? Then, in the third verse, you're back to him now, and he's imagining the people in the train and the lives they're living, longing for that, but feels like he doesn't deserve it. Then, finally, in the fourth verse, he kind of tells you what he would do if he was out. The time in between the verses is filled in by an instrumental, and I think if he would have chosen to put a chorus there, it actually would make this song significantly worse. Okay, I'm done fanboying this song. My point is, the structure you choose may greatly impact how you tell the story you want to tell. So I would say pick anything to start out, but maybe once you've written a couple sections, it may become more clear, this structure's great, but it's not the best for telling this story. So you might want to switch it around. Or if you sit there trying to write a bridge because you chose verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and then no bridge is coming, maybe ask yourself, does it not come because this story doesn't need a bridge, or because I can't write it? If you can't write it, go back to steps 1 and 2, but maybe it doesn't need a bridge. As with my first 3 points, these are just general guidelines to get you going. I think they're really good ideas, but they're not always the right idea. Of course, keep in mind, your song can be literally whatever you want it to be. Like I mentioned earlier, I really do apply these tricks all the time when I write songs. One song in particular that I used all 3 of them is a song called Darling the World Wants You Back. It's one of my favorite songs I've ever written, and I don't have a finished recording, but I do have a recording of me just in an alley in Ohio, giving it my best performance. So if you want to check it out, I'd really appreciate it. I'll leave a link to it right here. And if this video has been helpful, please leave a like. And if you have any great ideas, let me know down in the comments below some other ideas for how you get through writing songs. I'll see you next time. Bye.